Today we are going to look at Leetcode problem simplify path. In the previous video, we looked at how to solve this using an array list. That was our approach number one. Now I'm going to use the second approach, which I've discussed in our previous video, which is using a stack. So let's read this problem statement once again. You're given an absolute path for a unique style file system which always begins with a slash. Your task is to transform this absolute path into its simplified canonical path. The rules of a unique style file system are as follows. A single period represents the current directory, a double period represents the previous parent directory. Multiple consecutive slashes such as double slash or triple slash or more are treated as a single slash. Any sequence of periods that does not match the rules above should be treated as a valid directory or file name. For example, triple period, 3 periods or more, 4 periods or valid directory or file names. The simplified canonical path should follow these rules. The path must start with a single slash. Directories within the path must be separated by exactly one slash. The path must not end with a slash unless it is the root directory. The path must not have any single or double periods used to denote current or parent directories. So yeah, let's go look at the code. And before looking at the code, here is the solution that I discussed in my previous video. I'm going to clear it. And now this time in this approach I'm going to use a stack, and the idea is to split the components by slash to get the components, and split the path by slash, and then we use a stack or a DQ as a stack to manage the directories, pushing valid names and popping for like triple period or something like that. And process each component. We are going to process each component by skipping the empty strings or period, and for double period we pop the top directory, and if the stack is not empty for valid names, we push it onto the stack, and then we build the result by popping the elements and constructing the path in reverse order, or use a DQ to avoid manual reversal. And we handle the edge cases like an empty stack, and we return a root directory. So here, why do we use a stack? Because stack naturally models the directory hierarchy, where push adds a directory and pop moves to the parent. And explicit stack semantics make the parent navigation intuitive, and however, building the result requires reversing the stack's order, since popping gives directories in reverse, which adds complexity unless we use a DQ, because stack adds to the top of the stack, adds the element to the top of the stack, and pops the element from the top of the stack and removes it, and it's LIFO. And so now to implement, I think we can use a DQ, like an array DQ as a stack for flexibility, and because DQ allows pushing and popping from the end, which is the stack behavior, and can be iterated in order to avoid manual reversal when building the result. And this mitigates the drawback of popping and reversing mentioned in this approach. So let's start with coding. So the first step should be always split the path by slash, and that will be stored in the string array. We have the components array is equal to path dot split, and then the next step would be initialize dq as a stack. And then now we are going to process each component. So here we are skipping empty components or a single period. Because here when we say continue, it's going to just continue with the rest of the components in the components array. And then now now we are checking if that component is a double period, because it is. If it is, then we need to go up one level by popping the top directory if there is any. And now we are pushing the valid directory name into the stack. valid directory or file. Now the next step is to build the simplified path. Now we can return the root if the result is empty. Return the root directory if the result is empty. So let me run this. $36. Okay, now let me submit it to see its performance. Okay, yep. I think the previous solution which I discussed in the previous video had a better time complexity than this. Okay, now I had a question. After watching my previous video, someone asked a few questions. So I'm going to address that now. Let me go to my submission. You can see my previous solutions. Runtime is a little bit better than this one. So, and let me open the code so that we can discuss the questions asked by someone who watched my video. Is this okay? Yeah, here's my okay. Okay, so I'm just searching for the question that they asked. Yeah, their question was why, they were just wondering why we are not handling like other cases, like, how come with only these conditions it's all the test cases are passing. So I want to like make it, I want to explain like why we have to only these conditions are enough for all the test cases to pass. Because so they particularly had a question about using triple period or period with more than 3 or more. So basically the problem explicitly states that any sequence of periods that does not match a single period or a double period should be treated as a valid directory or file name. So the code only checks for a single period or a double period explicitly, and anything that is that has a 3 periods or 4 or more, it's treated as a valid file name. So if, for example, in here, if we had like 3 periods here instead of 2, that would be, we wouldn't be removing the documents directory. We would say documents, and then after documents we would have the three period then pictures. So that would be the result. And then the other question was like about handling multiple slashes. So here the problem states that multiple consecutive slashes like double slashes or triple slashes are treated as a single slash. So when the path is split by a single slash using path that split here, right here. So Java split method treats consecutive delimiters as a separating empty strings. For example, if the let's say if it has like 2 slashes here, then that would be considered as an empty space here. So if we have the input had path that 2 slash there, let me just copy the path here and copy and paste it here. So let's just say that we had 2 slashes there. So this one, Java split method would treat consecutive delimiters as a separate empty strings, so it would be treated as like after user we would have an empty string there, which would be skipped when we are processing the component. And as we have stated in the code, here we are explicitly checking right here for an empty component. And then yeah, and the other question that someone asked is like what happens if you have a period and a character, for example period A or period A or period, something like that, right? So period comma, something like that, right? So then they're added to the stacks as a valid names. So if, for example, if you have like 2 periods here in the path, it would be a valid name. So here you would have a 2 period here.